record? All right, we're recording. And I'm going to share my screen. Oh, give me a sec. Alrighty, there you go. My name is Kirsten. Oh, I know all of you, awesome. My name is Kirsten Cook. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I've been with the adventure programs for 4 years, although I've only been teaching workshops since earlier this year when COVID started. I would like to start off by acknowledging that we are fortunate to be able to study and work on the unceded traditional and ancestral territory of the Chumash people. Much of the knowledge that I share in these workshops comes from traditional ecological knowledge preserved and passed down through thousands of years by Indigenous peoples. I hope that this presentation can do justice to that tradition of sharing knowledge about how to live off and protect the land, while also acknowledging that the past and present original inhabitants of this land have been irrevocably harmed by those who arrived on their territory. I realize that these are just words, but I hope that these words can create awareness and be a step towards future change. All right, today's workshop is called A Lesson in Naturopathy. I'm not entirely sure how to say that word, maybe it's naturopathy, but why you should make your own teas. The purpose of this workshop is to make people more aware of the herbs around them and how they can be used for personal health, refreshment, falling asleep, reducing stress, etc. It will provide more information on prepackaged teas and why they may not be the best for some people. Before we get started on this, I do need to clarify that I am not a licensed medical practitioner and can only give you information that other people have produced on these plants. Anything I tell you in this presentation should not be a substitute for a doctor's visit, and I would not advise self-diagnosis or treatment. I also want you to know that I am of the belief that certain herbs can be used to alleviate pain or help digestion or treat other things like that. But I also believe that Western medical treatments such as antibiotics and vaccines are absolutely critical. So I think that Western and traditional medicine can coexist peacefully, and I think that both are actually very important. That being said, please feel free to type any questions, comments, or concerns into the chat, or if I invite you to turn your mic on, you're welcome to do that as well. So I kind of do these workshops on plants because I've been obsessed with ethnobotany for the last 4 years. And I've basically done most of this website that you can see a little snapshot of with the Isla Vista Ethnobotany Project. And I've wrote a lot about plants and their uses, but I haven't really written anything about teas or herbs. So this was kind of cool for me to prepare for you all. You guys should check out that website if you ever have a chance and you're interested. I'll put the link in the chat right there for you. But basically, we've got stuff that's relevant to Isla Vista, but also to people in all parts of the world. So that's pretty cool. I want to start off by asking you all what you want to take away from today's workshop. You can type in the chat, share it out loud, whatever you want, just so I can get an idea of kind of like why you're here. Although I know all of you, so it's very possible you're here just to support me.
Just interested what you are doing.
Thanks. All right, Juliet wants to learn how to harvest from nature. Awesome. Store-bought food is scary. True that, true that. Annalise agrees. Oh, and we've got a little, I'm assuming my dad, Thomas, added a annotation. Thank you. He wants knowledge. Okay, I'm gonna clear that. Cool, moving on. All right, so I'm gonna get the ball rolling like I usually do with some background information on the topics, mostly naturopathy, herbs, teas, and some other stuff like how to prepare tea. So I believe, I don't know that any of you signed up using Shoreline, which is our university's like system for signing up for events. I think most of you just signed on through things I sent you. But I accidentally put as a title something with homeopathy in the title, and homeopathy is not the word that I wanted to use. I wanted to use naturopathy. Homeopathy is kind of it's a different thing. It's a medical philosophy and practice from the 1700s that involved kind of using small amounts of natural substances to try to make sick people healthier. I don't entirely understand it, but the difference is naturopathy is using natural methods of treatment from a variety of disciplines, including traditional and modern scientific medicines. And I think that homeopathy can fall under naturopathy, but naturopathy is a much broader area, and can be treatments and using plants and animal products and other things like that. All right, so something I learned while looking up teas for you guys. Apparently, the word tea used to only apply to teas that were made from a specific plant, the Camellia sinensis plant, which is like the tea plant. And so they had come up with a different term for any other kind of leaf water, basically, and that was called tisane. So if you ever hear the word tisane, or if you hear herbal tea, that sets non-caffeinated teas apart from caffeinated teas. And caffeinated teas are black and green tea, which come from the Camellia sinensis plant, but also, I believe, white tea and yerba mate. They all have caffeine in them. Any other plant, not any other plant, excuse me, any other kind of tea is usually herbal tea and will not have caffeine in it. Something interesting, so I'm living with somebody who's gluten-free, and I learned from her a couple weeks ago that many prepackaged teas, so like the little tea baggy teas that you find, they have fillers in them. In the ingredient section on the box of tea, it'll say like natural flavors, and that can be cheap gluten or soy products that are used to kind of make the tea bags look fuller, even though they don't add flavor or anything, they just add bulk. And so if you're not careful and you're gluten-free, you can accidentally intake gluten because they've got this cheap wheat product that's in their teas. So the key is to look, if the tea box doesn't say gluten-free and it says natural flavors, you're probably looking at a gluten product in your tea. Cool. All right, so moving on to kind of working directly with tea plants that you want to put in your tea. Our first dilemma is, what's better, fresh cut herbs or dried herbs? It kind of turns out that this comes down to both preference and properties specific to certain herbs. Some plants like parsley are best used fresh, but most plants are much easier to harvest in large quantities and then let dry so you can use them throughout the year. One drying process, and you don't have to do it a bunch. You don't have to cut the plant fresh again. Either way, if you want to harvest your own herbs, make sure to harvest herbs in the early morning on a sunny day after the dew on the plants has evaporated. Use a sharp knife or cutting tool, leaving enough foliage to keep the plants growing. Usually that means don't cut back further than the second set of leaves. Make sure your cuts are at an angle, about a 45-degree angle, right at that node where the leaves meet the stem, because that can usually help your plant bush out from that point and grow better, and produce more of the leaf or the stem or whatever you're using for your tea. Obviously, you only want to choose the healthy looking leaves or flowers or fruits, whatever you're using for your tea, and make sure it's not been treated by pesticides or herbicides or fertilizers, or at least not ones that can touch the leaves themselves. And that kind of goes also for don't pick herbs that are right along the road where cars and other pollutants, dogs can pee on them. You don't want to eat that. And if you do, if that's your like last option and you have to, the only plant is right on the road, make sure you wash it really well. Or better yet, go to the store and just buy the leaves. So some plants, perennial plants, you can harvest throughout the year, although you do want to leave them enough time to kind of build up reserves to survive the winter. Whereas annual herbs, they don't need to survive the winter, so you can just harvest them as much as you want up until the first frost when they usually die off. To dry leaves and flowers, you want to cut a bunch of herbs and then tie it with a string and hang it upside down to dry in a warm, dark place with good ventilation. If there's not enough air circulation or it's damp where they're drying, they'll get mildewy, moldy, and you don't really want to eat that or use that product anymore. The herbs are ready for storage when the leaves are dry and crackly. You want to strip the leaves off and crumble them, or you can use a food processor if you prefer, and then put it into an airtight jar to keep it away from the air and also keep it away from direct sunlight. I've got a bunch of other details here. You can actually dry them in the microwave or the oven, but I'm not sure how interested all of you are in the exact drying processes, but there's many ways to do it if you are interested. The next thing I got here for you is how much of the plant do you actually want to put into your tea? For freshly cut herbs, you're going to want more. You want at least 3 teaspoons, maybe more depending on the plant. For dry leaves, you want at least 1 teaspoon per cup. This is because wet leaves tend to carry a lot of extra water that can dilute your tea. And then also, the bigger the leaf, which is, when they're dry, they're usually bigger, they take up more space and have more air space between leaves, so you want more quantity. Did you know that different types of teas actually need different water temperatures? I have some puns for you guys, sorry. You'll be in hot water if you get this wrong, so listen closely. Herbal teas, rooibos, and black teas are best if steeped in boiling water. So that's about 112 degrees Fahrenheit. I honestly have no idea what you do when you're at an altitude. I'm at 10,000 feet, and our boiling point's in the 90 degrees something. So I don't even know how you get water hotter when, I don't know. But if you're at sea level, you should be good with boiling water with those kinds of teas. That being said, green, white, and oolong teas all have different optimum water temperatures, which I have here for you. But you can easily look that up. And basically, if you put these teas into boiling water, you will burn the leaves and your tea will be bitter. So best to avoid that. I also added some cooling time column here. Let the water cool after it boils just for a little bit, less than a minute, and it should be good to put your tea leaves in. Some of you might be beginners at tea drinking, I don't know, or herb collection, and I don't know, where do you get your herbs? I would first recommend your own garden or your neighbor's garden or somewhere outside, just because I think that's, homegrown is best. But that's a lot of work, and thankfully we have plenty of shops in Santa Barbara area, but in most parts that sell bulk herbs. There's shops that are actually specifically for spices and teas, like Vices and Spices and Botanica de los Santos, but there's also chain stores, natural grocers, Lazy Acres, Sprouts, things like that have a bulk food section. And sometimes they'll have dried herbs, dried teas, stuff like that you can buy in larger quantities than just tea bags. Then obviously most stores have pre-made teas and tea bags. And after this presentation, once you know a little bit more, you can actually look at the back of the like ingredient section on those boxes and see like, oh, that herb will give me energy, or oh, that'll reduce cramps, you know, and so you can kind of know what you're drinking and why it would be combined with other plants. Do we have any questions so far? You can say out loud, put them in the chat, whatever. What is my favorite tea? I'm kind of boring. I love caffeinated teas, obviously, but for herbal teas, I just love peppermint tea. I think that is a great one. I mean, it's got a lot of health benefits, but I've always loved the flavor of mint. So, all right. And can you also dry plants by leaving them in your car? I would say you hypothetically could, but there's not a lot of airflow inside of a car. So I don't think that would be ideal. Yeah. I don't know. It doesn't hurt to try it though, right? All right, cool. Thank you. I'm going to keep going then. Now we're going to move on to herbs and recipes for different ailments. I only have a couple, or not ailments necessarily. Some of them are ailments and some of them are just reasons you would want to use an herb. Again, this information should not serve as a doctor's visit or advice on treatments. I'm merely sharing information on how plants have been used traditionally and by naturopathic professionals. Please remember to check with your doctor before adding any herbs or supplements to your routine. Also, please keep in mind that too much of anything is bad. Small doses of certain things can greatly improve quality of life, but too much can really hurt or kill you. I like to think about water as a good example. 2 liters or so a day, perfect. 2 gallons of water in 10 minutes will probably make you vomit. And an ocean of water can drown you. All right, so I've got a treat for all of you who menstruate or know someone who gets periods. PMS is the acronym for premenstrual syndrome. There are about 1 million different symptoms that fall under this, or that are otherwise related to the hormonal changes that people go through throughout their cycle. Some people get these symptoms before, after, or during their period. And, you know, the list of symptoms is 1 million miles long, so different kinds of herbs that treat PMS can treat different parts of that. But, you know, people who menstruate get pain in breasts, abdomen, back, joints, muscles, and pelvis. We get gastrointestinal issues like constipation, diarrhea, nausea, passing excessive amounts of gas and water retention. There's also appetite changes, excessive hunger, fatigue, or loss of appetite. Our moods can be more prone to anxiety or general discontent. We can feel abdominal fullness, bloating, or cramping. And we commonly experience acne, depression, headache, insomnia, irritability, lack of concentration, moodiness, painful menstruation, or weight gain. So, preach. Yeah, so that was a list of symptoms actually by the Mayo Clinic. So it's not just me complaining, that's like actually real. As you can see, we really could use all the help we can get when treating causes and symptoms. So I recently followed this doctor, this naturopathic doctor who like tries to help women use, or people with who menstruate, helps them try to find ways to treat symptoms without going on birth control. And so I really liked some of what she had to say. Some of that stuff's on here. But yeah, so raspberry leaf is one of those plants that I keep hearing about in relation to menstrual health. It is a tonifying herb, which means if taken properly, it can tone the uterine lining and either helps reduce heavy menstrual bleeding or helps start menstrual bleeding for people who have a hard time starting their periods. So this is kind of like, it brings the body to a midpoint. So anyone that's far above or below the midpoint, it brings you kind of to the middle there. This plant is also high in minerals, so it may help reduce period pain. Fun fact. I don't know that we have wild raspberries in California, but I do know in certain parts of the world there are wild raspberries, East Coast being one of them. Another good option to help reduce heavy menstrual bleeding are fruits high in vitamin C and other bioflavonoids like citrus. Fruits are a little bit different than leaves when making tea. You could like squeeze the fruit directly into your hot water, or you could put like the peel or the zest into your little loose leaf tea container. Or you could just slice the fruit and throw it right in, or dry it first. The peels are also high in vitamin C and fiber, so you don't just need to eat the inside for it to do the trick for you. Peppermint, I got another one for you. Peppermint is one of those plants with more uses than we can count. The active ingredient is menthol and is known for soothing properties, cooling properties, and due to that, it can help reduce menstrual cramping pain. So that's pretty cool. Like I said, I love mint. Favorite flavor, favorite smell. Fantastic. You'll see mint a couple times later in this presentation because it's got some great stuff in it. Lemon balm, also known as Melissa, is in the mint family, Lamiaceae. And that family just seems to be really great. I think sage has a lot of medicinal properties as well, although I didn't put it in my presentation. Lemon balm has been known to reduce menstrual cramping. Fun fact. And it tastes and smells kind of citrusy, kind of lemony, instead of minty. So that's interesting. Oh, I spelled chamomile wrong. Awkward. Chamomile, another great one with a lot of different benefits, one of which is reducing menstrual pain due to its anti-inflammatory property. And that comes from the active ingredient flavonoids, which, as you probably remember, the citrus had bioflavonoids, so that was the anti-inflammatory property of citrus. So yeah, you'll see that one again as well. Now we have another, health issue, I guess, that many people get. Acid reflux and heartburn are often kind of put together. But I'm also including a third part, like digestive aids. These kind of all are kind of woven in together, related to stomach acid and too much production or underproduction and how your body reacts to it. And that can helping digestion and also helps stop ulcers or helps make ulcers feel better, and also heartburn and acid reflux, like kind of all that in there, all that same digestive tract. Licorice root, I don't have any idea how to say the active ingredient in this one. Glycyrrhizin, perhaps, I don't know, but that's supposed to help prevent acid reflux and heartburn and helps with digestion. The active compound is an antioxidant and an anti-inflammatory and has antimicrobial properties. And like all things, too much of this can cause health complications. So if you do decide to look into supplementing your diet with something like this, speak to your doctor. Cool. Moving on. Ginger, you're usually using the root for this plant. This also does a lot of good. You've probably eaten it in certain kind of Asian dishes, but it's also great to mix into a tea because it aids digestion, reduces nausea, and is an antioxidant and an anti-inflammatory. You've probably had ginger chews or ginger beer or something to settle your stomach while on a long car ride or on a boat. Marshmallow Root. The active ingredient is a mucilage. Again, not sure how to say that word. But basically it's kind of the mucusy viscousness of the plant that helps coat parts of the body like the throat and the digestive tract and the stomach to help aid stomach acid-related problems. And it stops irritation. It can be used for other anti-irritation, anti-inflammatory issues as well, although we're just focusing on stomach right now. And it's an antioxidant. We have native mallows and non-native kind of wild growing mallows. And then also people grow mallows in their yards just because they're beautiful. And most of those, if not all of them, actually have edible properties to them with that kind of mucus-like substance. So they all have similar properties. You probably won't find actual marshmallow plant, but you will see other mallows. Of course, we got mint again, this time as a digestive aid. If taken before experiencing acid reflux or the symptoms of acid reflux, this should aid in preventing that as well. But keep in mind that mint has been known to worsen the symptoms of acid reflux if eaten while experiencing those symptoms. I hope that made sense. If it doesn't, stop me. But basically, take it as not as a symptom reliever, but as like to avoid the symptoms, to avoid even feeling them. Lemon balm again, this time for easing indigestion and nausea. Makes sense. It's in the mint family, so it kind of makes sense that it have similar properties and similar uses. And there are probably a million other plants that could be used for this, but these are just like some of the ones that I recognized and that other people might recognize as seeing like things they saw in teas they drank before, or that they've seen in the supermarket even. Now I've got energizing and anti-fatigue herbs, teas, and recipes. If coffee just isn't your cup of tea, we've got some other energizers for you. I apologize. I did not give myself enough time to finish this presentation, so there were probably a bunch of other ones I could have added in here. Like cinnamon, and cinnamon's a great one for energizing, and then people also tend to put sweet things like berries and fruits to give a little burst of sugar that can like get kind of give you a little like momentary energy. But yeah, so I do have ginger. That's a great energizer. It also improves cognitive function, fights fatigues, and peppermint again, which improves concentration and energizes. Obviously, you guys know caffeine would be, tea caffeines like black tea and green tea and mate. Those are all also in the energizer category, but those are caffeinated. And, you could easily drink peppermint before bed to help you stay awake, but still be able to fall asleep. Whereas caffeine for some people won't allow them to sleep at all, All right, and I've got a couple more things for you. This time, kind of helping you rest, helping you sleep, helping you reduce stress, anxiety, and insomnia. A plant I don't have on here that you've probably seen used in lotions as stress relievers or in like essential oils for anxiety reducing is lavender. That's a great one. I personally don't love the smell, but some people love that. Chamomile, you've probably drank tea a couple times that was, said sleepy time or whatever on it. That's chamomile. I also don't really like chamomile smell. But that helps with relaxation and sleep. And I've got a fun little recipe for you here that I call it lights out tea because it's just chock full of herbs that are traditionally used to help you relax or stop insomnia or help you sleep. It doesn't have lavender or chamomile, but it's got skullcap, which just sounds like it would knock you out. It's got passion flower and rose petals. It's got lemon balm, which we already talked about. It's got marshmallow leaf, which we already talked about, although that's probably a filler in this case. And it's got the California poppy, which is in fact related to the opium poppy, although the amount of like the chemical found in opium is so low that it's not all that harmful. And in California, you're actually not allowed to pick California poppies. I think it's illegal, so don't do that. But they made this in Colorado, so it's fine. But yeah, it was very tasty. I enjoyed this tea. Yeah, that is my list of plants for you. There's so many more. But that kind of gives you a taste. And yeah, I'd like to open it up to you all. If you have any tea stories or recipes, or you have any questions about this or about other things about plants or anything, I'm here for you. Otherwise, you're welcome to leave. My next workshop is next week on Friday, the 13th, unfortunately. The timing is TBD. I think it'll be 5 p.m. just because I'm starting my job and I won't be able to do noon. But yeah. Any questions? Thanks for coming, Juliet. It's great to see, or not see you, but see your typing. Do you know any teas that are supposed to be relaxing muscles or muscle pain? Well, I've got a couple plants in here that you can put in tea that help reduce various kinds of pain. Thanks, Annalise. And that help relax the body. The cramp bark. Thank you, Annalise. Specifically relaxing muscles or muscle pain, I don't know any off the top of my head, but I know they exist. If you want me to show you the plants I've already shared that help with like menstrual cramps and menstrual pain, I think that would probably kind of fall into the same category. But otherwise, I can look into it for you if you want. Just give me your email. Yeah. Cool. All right, bye, Dad. Thanks. Cool. I'll get back to you, Georgia. Ooh,
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
Yeah, did you learn anything new?
Sorry?
Did you learn anything new?
Yeah, pretty much everything. I drink a lot of tea, but it's always black tea.
Yeah. I think that's kind of how most people, most people caffeinated.
Even herbal tea, you know, but it's from the back which says herbal tea.
It just says herbal tea, no details.
I didn't check.
You're funny. Well, yeah, thank you so much for coming. It means a lot.